Rowan Calder stood beside the defendant's table, his security uniform still bearing the courthouse insignia. As every eye in the courtroom turned toward him, he said,
Your Honor, this ruling is a miscarriage of justice, and I object.
His hand rested firmly on Elara Vance's shoulder, a gesture both protective and defiant. At the defense table, Elara looked up at him, her tear-streaked face frozen in shock. The daughter of tech titan Richard Vance, now facing criminal charges that would destroy her life, couldn't comprehend why this silent guard, someone she'd never spoken to, would risk everything for her. None of them understood that this single moment would shatter one of the most carefully constructed corporate conspiracies in American history. Before we dive into this powerful story of corruption, courage, and redemption, let me know in the comments if you believe justice should protect the innocent, no matter how powerful their enemies are. And if you think stories about hidden heroes like Rowan deserve to be heard, don't forget to like and subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's discover what compelled a man who had abandoned the legal system 15 years ago to step back into the very world that broke him. But first, what do you think drives someone who's spent 15 years in hiding to suddenly expose himself at the exact moment when staying invisible would have been safer? The late autumn sun of Washington, D.C. pierced through the towering windows of the Federal District Courthouse, casting golden bars across the polished marble floors that Rowan Calder had just inspected. 6 in the morning. Just like every morning for the past 15 years. He was always the first to arrive, a 40-year-old man with close-cropped dark hair touched with gray at the temples, wearing the crisp navy uniform of courthouse security. The badge on his chest read simply, R. Calder, Security. The studio apartment in southeast D.C. had been dark when he left at 5. One room containing a narrow bed, a coffee maker, and walls bare except for 2 items, a framed law degree from Georgetown University, turned face down on the shelf, and beside it, a newspaper clipping from 15 years ago with the headline, Federal Prosecutor Resigns in Scandal, Key Witness Dead. Rowan never looked at either one anymore. The past was sealed. Done. He didn't turn on the heat before leaving, winter gas bills ran high, and on a security guard's salary of $3,000 a month, every dollar mattered. Breakfast was black coffee from a thermos and whatever he could grab from the courthouse staff cafeteria, a small benefit that came with the uniform. That morning, as Rowan completed his walk-through of the third-floor corridor, he paused outside Courtroom 12, the venue for high-profile federal cases. Today, one of the most explosive corporate trials in recent memory was scheduled to begin, United States versus Elara Vance, charging the 28-year-old heiress with corporate espionage, embezzlement, and securities fraud tied to her late father's company, Vance Dynamics. Rowan hadn't learned about the case from news broadcasts, he didn't own a television. He'd read the court dockets during his overnight shifts, seen the expensive lawyers conferring in hushed tones, overheard the things they said when they thought the security guard couldn't hear them. To them, he was part of the furniture. Invisible. Not worth noticing. But Rowan Calder hadn't always been invisible. 15 years ago, he had been one of the most feared prosecutors in the Department of Justice. He'd had a corner office with a view of the Capitol, a conviction rate that made defense attorneys nervous, and a reputation for taking down untouchable targets. He'd been building the biggest case of his career, a corruption network reaching into the highest levels of government. Until the witness he'd promised to protect was found dead in a staged suicide. Until the case was buried by his own superiors. Until he'd refused to stay silent and lost everything. He pushed the memories down. That was another life. Now he checked IDs, monitored metal detectors, and ensured the courtrooms remained secure. Honest work. Simple work. Work that didn't require him to trust a system he no longer believed in. As Rowan turned to leave, his radio crackled. Calder, Courtroom 12 needs a security presence. High-profile defendant. Media circus. Be there by 8:30. He exhaled slowly. High-profile meant scrutiny, cameras, and endless opportunities for things to go wrong. But orders were orders. By 9 o'clock, the courtroom was overflowing. Journalists packed the gallery, their cameras aimed at the defense table. Prosecutors straightened their files with confident precision. Federal marshals lined the walls. And at the defense table sat Elara Vance. She was 28 but looked as though she carried the grief of a lifetime. Her blonde hair was pulled back severely, her tailored black suit immaculate, yet her pale hands trembled as they gripped the edge of the table. Her eyes, red-rimmed from sleepless nights, stared blankly at the empty chairs beside her. 8 empty chairs. The seats reserved for her legal team from Sullivan and Cross, the white shoe firm charging $1,200 an hour. The lawyers who had promised to defend her against the federal government's crushing case. But they weren't there. Rowan watched from his post near the side door as Elara checked her phone for the 7th time in 5 minutes. Each time she set it down, her face grew a shade paler. He'd seen that look before, the dawning realization of abandonment. Of betrayal. He knew they weren't coming. Someone had gotten to them. All rise. The court officer's voice boomed through the chamber. Judge Caroline Mercer entered, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and a reputation for running the tightest courtroom in the district. She took her seat at the bench, surveyed the room, and her sharp gaze locked onto the empty defense table. "Miss Vance," Judge Mercer said, her tone clipped and cold, "where is your legal team?" Elara stood slowly, trying to maintain composure, but her voice cracked. "Your Honor, I've been trying to reach them. They're not answering. I don't understand." "You don't understand?" The judge's eyebrows rose. "Miss Vance, this is a federal criminal trial, not a social engagement. Your attorneys have a duty to this court." "I know, Your Honor. I'm sorry. I just need." "What you need, Miss Vance, is legal representation. And since your very expensive counsel has apparently decided not to appear, I have no choice but to declare a mistrial and reschedule, after sanctioning Sullivan and Cross for contempt." She reached for her gavel. "This court will reconvene in." "Your Honor." The voice came from the back of the courtroom. Deep. Steady. Unmistakable. Every head turned. Rowan Calder stepped forward from his post, his boots echoing on the marble floor. His hand moved to his belt, not to his sidearm, but to his jacket pocket. When he reached the bar that separated the gallery from the well of the court, he didn't stop. He walked straight to Elara Vance and placed his hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him, eyes wide with confusion and disbelief. Judge Mercer's gavel struck like thunder. "Officer Calder, return to your post immediately or I'll have you removed for contempt." Rowan met the judge's furious gaze without flinching. Then, slowly, he reached into his jacket and withdrew a leather wallet. He opened it and held it up. The courtroom fell completely silent. "Your Honor," Rowan said quietly, "my name is Rowan Calder. 15 years ago, I was a senior trial attorney with the United States Department of Justice. My bar license was never revoked, only my security clearance." He set the credentials on the defense table. "Under Rule 3.03 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, I formally request permission to enter an appearance as counsel for the defendant, effective immediately." The prosecutor shot to his feet. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. This man is courtroom security, not—" "I know exactly who he is," Judge Mercer interrupted, her expression unreadable. She leaned forward, studying Rowan with narrowed eyes. "Mr. Calder. You walked away from one of the most promising legal careers I've ever seen. You disappeared. And now you're asking me to let you represent a defendant in a case of this magnitude after 15 years of silence?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Why?" Rowan's jaw tightened. His hand remained steady on Elara's shoulder. "Because Miss Vance deserves a defense. Because her attorneys were threatened into abandoning her. And because I've spent 15 years watching powerful people manipulate this system. I'm done watching." For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the hum of the ventilation system and the faint click of a camera shutter. Judge Mercer set down her gavel. "Counselor Calder," she said slowly, "you have until Monday to file a formal notice of appearance and bring yourself current on all case filings. Miss Vance, do you wish to retain this man as your attorney?" Elara looked up at Rowan, this stranger in a security uniform who had just upended his entire life for her. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge struck her gavel once more. "Very well. We'll reconvene on Monday at 9 a.m. Court is adjourned." As the room erupted in chaos, reporters shouting questions, marshals moving to restore order, Rowan leaned down and spoke quietly into Elara's ear. "Don't say anything to anyone. Don't go home. Meet me at the Constitution Avenue parking garage in 20 minutes. We have a lot of work to do." Elara nodded, unable to speak. And for the first time in 15 years, Rowan Calder felt the familiar weight of a case settle onto his shoulders, along with the knowledge that powerful people were already planning to destroy them both. They said Rowan couldn't save her, and now they say I can't hit 1,000 subscribers. Let's prove both wrong. Subscribe, share, and witness courage in action. The parking garage was empty except for Rowan's 15-year-old sedan, parked in a corner where the security cameras had blind spots. He'd chosen the location deliberately. Elara arrived 10 minutes later, still trembling, her designer heels echoing against concrete as she approached. "Get in," Rowan said, unlocking the passenger door. She hesitated, her hand on the door handle. "I don't even know you. Why would you do this? What do you want from me? Right now? I want you to get in the car before someone follows you here." Elara slid into the seat, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Rowan pulled out of the garage, taking a deliberately complex route through the city, checking mirrors, doubling back, ensuring they weren't tailed. The silence between them was thick with unspoken questions. Finally, Elara spoke. "They called my lawyers last night." "Someone did." My lead attorney, Michael Sullivan, sounded terrified. He said they had photos of his daughter leaving school. He said he was sorry, but his family came first. Rowan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "They're thorough. I'll give them that." "Who are they?" "That's what we're going to find out." He pulled into a diner parking lot, fluorescent lights, cracked vinyl booths, the kind of place where no one asked questions. "But first, I need you to tell me everything. Your father's company. The accusations. Who benefits if you're convicted?" Inside, Rowan ordered coffee. Elara ordered nothing, just stared at the chipped formica table. When she finally looked up, her eyes were hollow with exhaustion and grief. "My father died 3 months ago. Heart attack," they said. "Sudden. He was only 57. Her voice cracked. 2 weeks later, the board of directors filed criminal charges against me. They claim I embezzled $40 million and sold proprietary technology to foreign competitors. But I didn't. I swear I didn't." Rowan pulled a notepad from his jacket. Old habit, never died. The timing matters. Your father dies. The board moves immediately. What changed when he died? Elara's hands shook as she wrapped them around Rowan's untouched coffee cup, seeking warmth. Everything. I inherited his controlling share of Vance Dynamics. 51%. The board, led by my uncle, Marcus Sterling, they can't make major decisions without my approval now. Rowan's pen stopped moving. He looked up, recognition flickering in his eyes. They're not trying to punish you, he said quietly. They're trying to eliminate you. 24 hours before Rowan intervened, Michael Sullivan sat in his corner office at Sullivan & Cross, staring at his phone. The message had arrived at 11:30 the previous night, no caller ID, just a video file and 3 words, your daughter. Your choice. The video showed his 12-year-old daughter Emma leaving St. Catherine's Preparatory School, walking to the car pickup line. Nothing threatening in the footage itself. But the timestamp was from that afternoon. And the angle, zoomed, professionally, made the message clear. We can reach her anytime we want. Sullivan had built his career defending the indefensible, standing firm against prosecutors and judges who tried to intimidate him. But this wasn't a courtroom. This was his child. He called his partners at midnight. By 2 a.m., all 8 attorneys on Elara's defense team had received similar messages. Different loved ones. Same unmistakable threat. By dawn, they'd drafted their withdrawal motion. Michael Sullivan had looked at himself in the bathroom mirror that morning, barely recognizing the man staring back. 30 years of practicing law, and this was how it ended, abandoning a client he knew was innocent because powerful men had decided she needed to disappear. He'd tried calling Elara. Tried explaining. But the words wouldn't come. How do you tell someone you're condemning them to save yourself? So he didn't answer when she called. None of them did. In the courtroom on Friday morning, Elara had checked her phone obsessively, each unanswered call draining more color from her face. Rowan had watched her from his security post, recognizing the precise moment hope died in her eyes, that flicker of understanding that she was utterly alone. Judge Mercer's voice had been ice. Miss Vance, this court cannot proceed without proper representation. However, given the severity of the charges and your apparent inability to retain competent counsel, I'm inclined to remand you to federal custody until. Your Honor. Rowan's voice had cut through the courtroom like a blade through silk. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. Even the court reporter's fingers froze above her keyboard. He'd moved forward with deliberate calm, his security uniform suddenly feeling like armor he was finally ready to shed. When he reached Elara's side and placed his hand on her shoulder, he felt her entire body tense beneath his palm, surprise, confusion, and something else. Hope, desperate and fragile. Judge Mercer's gavel had struck like thunder, but Rowan stood his ground. 15 years of silence ended in a single moment. And as he held up his old DOJ credentials, watching recognition dawn in the judge's eyes, Rowan knew there was no going back. He'd just declared war on people who made witnesses disappear. Judge Mercer studied the credentials in Rowan's hand for what felt like an eternity. The courtroom held its breath. Even the prosecutors had gone silent, their confident smirks replaced by confusion. Approached the bench, the judge said finally. Both counsel. The lead prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney David Chen, shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. This man is courthouse security, not a practicing attorney. He has no business. I said approach, Mr. Chen. Rowan stepped forward, his boots echoing in the silence. Chen followed, his jaw tight with barely concealed anger. At the bench, Judge Mercer held out her hand for Rowan's credentials. She examined them carefully, comparing the photo to the man standing before her. "Rowan Calder," she said quietly, recognition flickering across her face. "I was a junior magistrate when you tried the Kellerman case. You were brilliant. Relentless." She paused. "What happened to you?" "I made the mistake of believing the system cared about truth more than convenience, Your Honor." Chen leaned in. "Judge, regardless of his past, he's been out of practice for 15 years. He's employed as security personnel. This is a federal criminal trial, not." "I'm aware of what this is, Mr. Chen." Judge Mercer's eyes never left Rowan. "Mr. Calder, your bar license shows active status, but you haven't practiced in over a decade. You have no office, no staff, no resources. You're asking me to allow you to defend against the full weight of the United States Attorney's Office with nothing but your credentials and apparent righteous indignation." "Yes, Your Honor." "Why?" Rowan glanced back at Elara, still sitting at the defense table, her face streaked with tears she was trying desperately to hide. "Because she deserves someone who won't be threatened into abandoning her. And because I know what it looks like when powerful people manipulate this court to destroy an innocent person." Judge Mercer set down the credentials. "Mr. Chen, do you have any legal objection to Mr. Calder's admission under Rule 3.03? Chen's face reddened. "Your Honor, we object on grounds of—" "Legal grounds, Counselor. Not your feelings." Chen's mouth opened, then closed. He had nothing. The rule was clear. Judge Mercer turned back to Rowan. "You have until Monday morning to file a proper notice of appearance and review all discovery materials. Miss Vance, do you wish to retain Mr. Calder as your attorney of record?" Elara stood, her voice stronger than it had been all morning. "Yes, Your Honor. I do." The gavel struck. "Very well. Court adjourned until Monday, 9 a.m. As the room erupted, Rowan returned to Elara's side. She looked up at him with a mixture of gratitude and terror. "Thank you," she whispered. "But you just made yourself a target." Rowan's expression didn't change. "I've been a target before." The safe house was a converted townhouse in Georgetown, owned by a former FBI colleague who owed Rowan more favors than either of them could count. Brick exterior, reinforced doors, windows that didn't appear on any rental database. Rowan had called in the debt without explanation. His friend had asked no questions. By midnight, the dining room table was covered with case files. Rowan had spent the afternoon at the courthouse archives, photocopying everything the prosecution had filed. 6 bankers' boxes worth of discovery materials, financial records, emails, witness statements, forensic accounting reports. Elara sat across from him, her suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, exhaustion evident in every movement. She'd been reading depositions for 3 hours straight. "They're claiming I transferred funds through shell companies in the Caymans," she said, her voice hollow. "But I've never even opened an offshore account. My father was obsessive about regulatory compliance. He'd never allow." "That's exactly the point." Rowan pulled a timeline from the stack, marked with red ink. "Look at the dates. The alleged transfers began 18 months ago. 3 months after your father's cardiac episode. The first one." Elara's head snapped up. "How did you know about that?" "I didn't. But the medical examiner's report mentions a previous hospitalization. Minor heart attack, fully recovered." Rowan tapped the timeline. "Someone knew your father was vulnerable. They started building this frame the moment they realized he might not survive long. My uncle was with him at the hospital. Marcus coordinated everything, the doctors, the treatment plan. Her voice cracked. I thought he was helping. Rowan spread out a second set of documents, the prosecution's evidence list. His eyes scanned the dates, the account numbers, the transaction codes. Something nagged at him, a pattern he'd seen before. He pulled his laptop closer, accessing old case files he'd saved before his resignation. Then he stopped. His blood went cold. What is it? Elara leaned forward. Rowan's finger traced a series of account numbers in the prosecution's evidence. These shell companies. Their registration dates, the routing structures, even the naming convention. He looked up, his expression dark. I've seen this exact pattern before. 15 years ago. In my last case. The one that ended your career. The one where my witness was killed. Rowan's jaw tightened. I was investigating a defense contractor trafficking classified technology. The money laundering network looked exactly like this. Same complexity, same fingerprint. He met her eyes. Elara, whoever framed you didn't just want your company. They needed to erase evidence of something bigger. Something your father discovered. Outside, a car engine idled on the street. Rowan's hand moved instinctively to the weapon he no longer carried. We need to move faster, he said quietly. They know we're asking questions. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. The courtroom was even more packed than before, word had spread about the security guard turned lawyer, and reporters filled every available seat. Rowan sat beside Elara at the defense table, wearing the only suit he owned, 15 years old but still presentable. The prosecution's star witness took the stand at 10:30. Dr. Gerald Bryce, forensic accountant, is regarded as the nation's leading expert in corporate fraud. His credentials took 5 minutes to recite. His testimony would be devastating, charts, graphs, financial flows all pointing to Elara's guilt. Assistant U.S. Attorney Chen walked him through the evidence methodically. Every transaction is traced. Every shell company is documented. Every dollar accounted for. By noon, the jury looked convinced. Your witness, Mr. Calder, Judge Mercer said. Rowan stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. He approached the witness stand without notes, without theatrics. Just a man who'd spent 3 nights dissecting every financial record Dr. Bryce had analyzed. Dr. Bryce, your report indicates you were retained by the prosecution 6 months ago. Is that correct? Yes. And you were paid your standard rate of $500 per hour? That's correct. How many hours did you bill? Bryce shifted slightly. Approximately 240 hours. Standard for a case of this complexity. Rowan nodded, pulling a document from his folder. And this wire transfer for $120,000 from your consulting firm, that was payment for your services? Yes. Interesting. Rowan approached the witness stand, handing Bryce a second document. Because this wire transfer, received by your firm 2 weeks before you were officially retained, shows a payment of $500,000. From a company called Meridian Strategic Holdings. Do you recognize that name? The color drained from Bryce's face. That's a different matter. Unrelated consulting. Really? Because Meridian Strategic Holdings is a subsidiary of Vance Dynamics, wholly owned by the board of directors. Specifically, it's controlled by CFO Marcus Sterling. Rowan's voice remained calm, surgical. So the board paid you $500,000 2 weeks before the prosecution hired you to prove their case against Miss Vance. Would you call that unrelated? Chen shot to his feet. Objection. This is outrageous speculation. Your Honor, Rowan said, producing another document, I have the wire transfer records, the corporate filings, and Dr. Bryce's own bank statements, obtained through a lawful subpoena this morning. The defense moves to strike Dr. Bryce's entire testimony on grounds of witness tampering and fraud upon the court. Judge Mercer's expression turned to stone. Dr. Bryce, you will remain available for further questioning. Mr. Chen, my chambers. Now. As the courtroom erupted, Rowan returned to the defense table. Elara gripped his arm, tears streaming down her face. How did you? I followed the money, Rowan said quietly. Just like they taught me. The coffee shop in Arlington was the kind of place where conversations disappeared into ambient noise. Rowan sat in the back corner, watching the door. At 2:15, a woman in her 50s entered, sharp eyes, FBI credentials visible on her belt. Special Agent Sarah Chen hadn't changed much in 15 years, except for the gray threading through her dark hair. She slid into the seat across from him without greeting. You're either very brave or very stupid, calling me after all this time. Probably both. Rowan pushed a folder across the table. I need you to run these shell companies through FinCEN. Quietly. Sarah didn't touch the folder. Rowan, I'm a senior agent now. I have oversight responsibilities, a pension 3 years away. I can't just. The witness in my case was 15 years ago. The one who died. Do you remember his name? Her expression hardened. Daniel Morse. Of course I remember. He was investigating illegal arms sales to sanctioned nations. Technology transfers that violate every treaty we have. Rowan tapped the folder. These companies, in Elara Vance's case, have the same structure as the ones Morse uncovered. Same routing, same complexity. Someone resurrected that network. Sarah's hand moved slowly toward the folder. She opened it, scanning the account numbers, her trained eyes catching patterns immediately. Her face went pale. This can't be a coincidence, she whispered. It's not. Vance Dynamics developed autonomous weapons systems. Drones with targeting AI. The kind of technology every terror state and insurgent group would kill for. Rowan leaned forward. Richard Vance discovered his board was selling it illegally. He was building evidence to expose them. Then he died. And they framed his daughter to take control of the company and bury the evidence. That's my theory. But I need proof. Real proof that connects these shell companies to actual arms deals. Sarah closed the folder, her jaw set. If I do this, and anyone finds out I'm helping you. I know what I'm asking. She studied him for a long moment, seeing the man he used to be beneath the years of self-imposed exile. Finally, she pulled out her phone. Give me 48 hours. I'll access the classified databases, trace the transaction endpoints. She paused. But Rowan, if this is what you think it is, these people won't just threaten lawyers. They'll eliminate anyone who gets close. They already tried 15 years ago. I'm still here. Daniel Morse isn't. The words hung between them like a ghost. Rowan's hands tightened around his coffee cup, the old guilt rising. Sarah stood, tucking the folder inside her jacket. 48 hours, she repeated. And Rowan? Watch your back. If they killed Richard Vance and framed his daughter, they wouldn't hesitate to finish what they started with you. She left without another word, disappearing into the afternoon crowd. Rowan sat alone, staring at his reflection in the dark coffee. Somewhere in those shell companies was the evidence that would either save Elara or get them both killed. Rowan saw the device the moment he opened his car door. A small black box magnetically attached beneath the driver's seat, red wire visible in the dim parking garage light. His hand froze on the door handle. 15 years of courtroom work hadn't erased his training. He'd done a 2-year rotation with the FBI's counterterrorism unit before law school. He backed away slowly, pulling out his phone. Not to call the police. Not yet. Instead, he texted Elara, "Don't go home. Don't go anywhere familiar. Wait for my call." Then he walked to the garage exit and didn't look back. The explosion came 6 minutes later, a concussive boom that shook the entire structure, triggering car alarms on 3 floors. Rowan was 2 blocks away when he heard it, feeling the vibration through the sidewalk. He kept walking, pulling his jacket collar up, just another pedestrian in the evening crowd. They'd made their message clear. No more warnings. He met Elara at Union Station, finding her in the crowded food court, her eyes wide with barely controlled panic. "What's happening?" "Your text said. We're leaving. Now." He took her arm, guiding her toward the metro. "They tried to kill me tonight. Which means they're done playing games." 2 trains and a cab ride later, they stood outside a nondescript building in rural Virginia, an old Cold War bunker converted into private storage. Rowan's FBI friend had maintained the location as an emergency safe house, complete with communications equipment and supplies. The steel door required 3 separate keys. Inside, the concrete walls were lined with canned goods, bottled water, and a makeshift living area with 2 cots separated by a thin curtain. Generator power. No windows. No cell signal. Complete isolation. Elara stood in the center of the small space, arms wrapped around herself. "How long do we have to stay here?" "Until Sarah gets the evidence. Or until they find us." Rowan locked the door behind them, engaging the internal bolts. 48 hours, maybe less. 48 hours in a bunker with a man I met 4 days ago. She laughed, but it came out broken, desperate. "My life has become completely insane." Rowan set down the duffel bag containing their files and his laptop. "You can still walk away. Turn yourself in, take a plea deal. You'd be alive. In prison. While my father's killers run his company and sell weapons to terrorists." She met his eyes, her fear transforming into something harder. "No. I'm seeing this through. Then get some rest. We have work to do." Outside, in the darkness beyond the bunker's reinforced walls, Rowan knew they were being hunted. The question wasn't if they'd be found, it was whether they'd uncover the truth before that happened. The encrypted message arrived at 3 in the morning through a secure portal Rowan had set up for anonymous tips. The laptop's alert chimed softly in the bunker's silence, pulling him from a restless half-sleep on the cot. "I worked for your father. I know what they did. I can help. JK." Rowan stared at the screen, every instinct screaming trap. He glanced at the curtain separating his space from Elara's. Her breathing was steady, finally sleeping after 2 days of constant fear. He shouldn't wake her. Not until he knew more. He typed carefully, "Who are you? How did you find this address?" The response came immediately, "Jenna Kim. Junior Systems Administrator at Vance Dynamics. Your FBI contact traced transactions through our servers, I monitor network security. I saw the queries. Mr. Vance trusted me. Before he died, he gave me access to something. Something they're killing to protect." Rowan's pulse quickened. "What kind of access?" The master server. Physical location, offline, air-gapped. Contains the original contracts, communications, everything. But it's in the archives, the old R&D facility beneath the main campus. They've sealed it. If you want the evidence, you'll have to go in. Why should I trust you? A pause. Then a file was uploaded, a photograph. Richard Vance is standing with a young woman in a Vance Dynamics IT uniform, his hand on her shoulder like a proud father. The timestamp was read 8 months ago. He told me if anything happened to him, I should protect Elara. I failed. I was too scared. But after they tried to kill you, I can't stay silent anymore. Rowan heard movement behind the curtain. Elara appeared, wrapped in a blanket, her hair disheveled. What is it? He turned the laptop toward her. She read the messages, her expression shifting from confusion to recognition when she saw the photo. Jenna, Elara whispered. She started as an intern when she was 19. My father mentored her, paid for her graduate degree. She's brilliant with systems architecture. Her voice cracked. I tried to reach her after the arrest. She never responded. I thought she'd abandoned me, too. Rowan typed, when can you get us access to the archives? Tomorrow night. Wednesday. Security shift change at 10 p.m. I'll disable the cameras for exactly 12 minutes. After that, you're on your own. The server is in sublevel 3, Vault 7. Biometric lock, it needs Elara's fingerprint. Her father coded it that way. Elara's hand trembled as she touched the screen. My fingerprint? He never told me. He was protecting you. Giving you the only key to destroy them. Rowan closed the laptop, meeting Elara's terrified gaze. This could be legitimate. Or it's an ambush designed to kill us both. Either way, Elara said quietly, we have to go. That server is the only proof that my father didn't die of natural causes. That I'm not a criminal. She straightened, shedding the blanket like armor. When do we leave? The Vance Dynamics Archives facility loomed against the night sky, a concrete monolith surrounded by chain-link fencing and security lighting. Rowan and Elara approached from the eastern perimeter at 9:58 p.m., dressed in dark clothing, carrying only a laptop and portable hard drive. Jenna's message had been precise, camera blackout begins at 10 hours. Side entrance, code 7-7-3-9. Stairwell to sublevel 3. You have 12 minutes before security notices. At exactly 10, Rowan punched in the code. The door clicked open. They moved quickly through the empty corridors, their footsteps echoing off sterile walls. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly green. The stairwell descended 3 levels into cold, recycled air that smelled of concrete and old electronics. Sublevel 3 was a maze of server rooms and storage vaults. Vault 7 stood at the end of the main corridor, its biometric scanner glowing red in the darkness. Elara pressed her thumb to the scanner. For 3 agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then, green. The vault door hissed open, revealing rows of server racks and a single terminal in the center. 8 minutes, Rowan said, booting up the laptop and connecting the drive. The terminal requested authentication. Elara's fingerprint again. The system unlocked, displaying terabytes of encrypted data, contracts, communications, financial transfers spanning 3 years. Rowan initiated the download. Progress bar, 4%. That's when they heard the footsteps above them. They knew, Elara breathed, terror flooding her face. They were waiting. The explosion came from the stairwell, not large enough to collapse the structure, but enough to seal the exit. Smoke began filtering through the ventilation system. Then voices, professional and calm, coordinating on radios. Targets confirmed on sublevel 3. Initiate containment protocol. Rowan's mind raced. Download progress, 23%. Too slow. They'd never make it. Through the vault door, he saw shadows moving, 3 figures in tactical gear, weapons drawn. Elara, get behind the server rack. Now. She didn't argue, clutching the laptop as files continued transferring. 47%. Rowan grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall, pathetic weapon against trained killers, but all he had. The first mercenary entered the vault. Rowan swung hard, connecting with the man's jaw, sending him sprawling. The second raised his weapon. Rowan dove, tackling him, fighting for the gun with desperate strength he didn't know he still possessed. A shot rang out. Concrete exploded near Elara's head. She screamed, fingers flying across the keyboard, bypassing encryption protocols her father had taught her years ago. 68%. Rowan. Her voice cut through the chaos. The charges, they've planted incendiary charges throughout the archives. He looked up, seeing the blinking devices attached to support columns. They had minutes, maybe less, before the entire level became an inferno. Download progress, 91%. The third mercenary appeared in the doorway, weapon trained on Elara. Rowan lunged, taking a brutal blow to his ribs, but knocking the gun aside. Then, distant sirens. Growing closer. Sarah had kept her promise. Download complete. Elara yanked the drive free, scrambling toward Rowan as flames erupted behind them. They ran. The emergency hearing convened at 9 the following morning. Judge Mercer had cleared her entire docket when Rowan filed the motion at midnight, still smelling of smoke, his shirt torn and bloodied. The courtroom was packed, federal marshals lined every wall, and Marcus Sterling sat in the front row, his expensive suit unable to hide the tension in his shoulders. Rowan stood at the defense table, the portable hard drive connected to the courtroom's presentation system. Elara sat beside him, her hand bandaged from a burn sustained during their escape, her eyes fixed on her uncle with a mixture of betrayal and rage. "Your Honor," Rowan began, his voice carrying the weight of 15 years of silence finally broken, "the defense moves to dismiss all charges against Miss Vance and requests immediate arrest warrants for Marcus Sterling, CFO of Vance Dynamics, and 6 members of the board of directors for conspiracy, murder, arms trafficking, and violation of the International Arms Trade Treaty." The courtroom erupted. Sterling shot to his feet. "This is absurd. Your Honor, this man is a disgraced." "Sit down, Mr. Sterling." Judge Mercer's voice cut like steel. "Mr. Calder, you have evidence to support these allegations?" "I do." Rowan pressed play. The screen filled with documents, contracts for autonomous weapons systems sold to sanctioned nations. Communications between Sterling and foreign arms dealers. Financial transfers routed $40 million through the same shell companies used to frame Elara. And finally, a video file dated 3 days before Richard Vance's death. Richard Vance appeared on screen, sitting in his office, looking exhausted but determined. "If you're watching this, I'm likely dead. My CFO, Marcus Sterling, discovered I was collecting evidence of the board's illegal activities. He's threatened me." Threatened Elara. "This server contains everything, the contracts, the payments, the truth. Elara, if you're seeing this, trust the fingerprint lock. I built it to protect you. And I'm sorry I couldn't stop them myself." The video ended. Silence consumed the courtroom. Judge Mercer turned to the federal marshals. "Arrest Marcus Sterling. Immediately." Sterling bolted for the exit. He made it 3 steps before FBI agents, Sarah's team, intercepted him, forcing him to the ground as he shouted protests and threats that echoed off the marble walls. Assistant U.S. Attorney Chen stood, his face pale. "Your Honor, in light of this evidence, the United States moves to dismiss all charges against Elara Vance with prejudice. We will be filing charges against the listed defendants within the hour." Judge Mercer's gavel struck once. "Miss Vance, you are free to go. This court owes you an apology for the injustice you have endured." She looked at Rowan. "And Mr. Calder, welcome back to the practice of law. I suspect you never truly left." Outside the courthouse, Elara stood in the sunlight for the first time in weeks as a free woman. Rowan stood beside her, watching as Sterling was loaded into a federal transport vehicle. "What happens now?" Elara asked quietly. Rowan looked at her, this woman he'd risked everything to protect, who'd proven herself brave enough to face killers for the truth. "Now we make sure this never happens again. Your father's company, his resources, we use them for something that matters." 6 months later, the brass plaque outside a renovated Georgetown townhouse read, "Calder and Vance, Integrity Law, Corporate Accountability and Justice." Inside, Rowan and Elara reviewed their first case together, ready to fight the next battle. Some partnerships were forged in fire. Theirs would burn bright enough to illuminate the darkest corners of power. Rowan risked everything to protect the innocent, and justice finally won. But every hero needs witnesses. If this story moved you, even a little, subscribe and share to make sure stories like this are never forgotten. Comment below, who would you risk everything to protect? Let's prove that courage still matters, both in stories and in real life.